Welcome back. It's Sunday the 21st of September and I have just come home from my very first ComicCon. I've never been to a con before. Since I wasn't into graphic novels a whole ton of a bit or comic books, I didn't know if they were my tribe, so to speak. So I had never really had the opportunity to go. But another bookseller I work with, Noel, who has done a lot with some indie publishing and is a huge source of information for graphic novels and comics, decided to organize a con devoted more to, the books and the art and, the how-tos of making comic books. And it is the MidCon Comic Show. And it was a lot of fun. I had never been to one before. I didn't really know what to expect. And also it being a brand new con, it has, first year con issues of, people coming versus not coming versus what works and doesn't work. And I also volunteered to help out a little bit. So I couldn't go Friday night. I had to work at the store. So I went on Saturday morning and I was the only panel for Noel, who was going to give a talk on how to make money in comic books, and that didn't go so well. And then I helped out with the registration desk, and, did some gophering for them, and made it back into another panel later that day with some artists, who I started out being the only person in that panel. Okay, so it was Comics as Art, and it had Phil Hester, Mike Norton, and Jeremy Hown. And they were like, ask us questions or we leave. So I managed to bother them for 10 minutes. Noel rounded up some other people who could come in and ask some questions, so it wasn't just me. Because all I really wanted to do was I don't know, I just read the comics. And by the way, you guys are all draw amazing. But that was really fun. Also, my store had a table there, so I kind of, helped out, covered the table for a little bit, for people, if they wanted to buy some things. We had a lot of books there about how to make comics, like Scott McCloud books, understanding comics and reinventing comics, how to make comics, and then Will Eisner's comics and sequential art, and a few other books like that. And that was really fun. I'd never been in an artist's room or a dealer room or anything like that, and that was really a new thing. It was kind of amazing to see all of the different things people bring to sell, not just comic book artists with their art. Noel's big focus was on education, and comics are fun, and he wanted everyone to feel welcome, whether you were an adult or a child or a teen, or whatever, you came as yourself or you came dressed as a character, that you had fun and you felt safe. And he wanted, and given, some of the problems that had happened at San Diego Comic-Con, and there had been some issues with people not, even the bystanders not knowing when they could step in at, Anime Iowa last year. He really wanted to be proactive, and that was really cool. So he brought in Susan Junis, Alexa Hart, and Mimi Rue Riley to talk about how cosplay is not consent. And he also had a person from the Rape Victims Advocacy Program, RVAP, from the University of Iowa, also come in and talk with them. And that was really good. It was really awesome that he got out front of this, and they were addressing it head on as opposed to just kind of pretending it's not going to happen and hoping for the best. And then this morning I went to a panel that I had to leave early because I picked up part of a shift this morning, so I had to be there by 10. So I didn't get to stay for the whole thing, but it was called Religion and Superheroes, and it was led by a professor from the University of Iowa who teaches a graduate student class where they examine religious tropes and religious iconography and how that relates to superheroes, and also how the superhero as religion, fits in there. And it was really cool, and they had a really good discussion. He could probably have an entire full-day panel devoted to it, and it would have been amazing. This is MidCon Year 1. This was their program, and if you read webcomics, this is Battle Pug, and so Mike Norton drew the cover for them. But I did find some things. Mayhem Comics, which is over by Ames, Iowa, which is about 90 minutes west of me. They brought long boxes of comics, and so I kind of looked through, and I didn't find a lot of stuff I wanted to buy. A lot of it was runs of things that I haven't read or don't read. But I have read The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and they had Volume 2, Issue 2 um, with them, and I really like the art in this. I think some of the art is really cool. So I bought this because it was only $2. Across from our table were some artists and writers from the Twin Cities Collective. And they had some art that I thought was really, really cool. And I kept looking at it and finally I was like, you know what, I'm going to go over and talk to them. Because this is what you do. You go to meet people. And I was really intrigued by a comic book, Siamese. And I've been reading a lot of dystopic fiction lately. As one does. That seems to be kind of a trend in adult fiction or spec fic. It follows kind of a post-climate meltdown world where everybody, you live in these like biodome type things. And then there's a war between those who are affluent and those who are not, and those who are not get shoved out into the domes. And the main character gets kidnapped by the opposition from the domes, and as he gets deeper and deeper into this world, he finds that a lot of these people in the opposition, they look exactly like people who live in the domes. And this is very weird. Hi, baby. And he meets a woman who looks exactly like his dead wife, and then he has to decide, does he go with, you know, the rebels, so to speak, or does he betray the rebels and go back to the domes? And, you know, is this woman his wife, or is it not his wife, or is it kind of the same thing? They had a deal where they had a concept, kind of like a prequel type character sketchbook, and then the first 2 issues. And they had a deal that if you bought those 3, you got the 3rd issue on disc, because they just finished on Tuesday and sent it to the printer. So I decided that was a really good deal, because the covers are gorgeous, and they're written by Lucas Munson and Zach Kotz, and Zach's sister Greta Kotz does their cover work. So this is the this is kind of the prologue slash character dossier, kind of like volume 0, and it's called Conjoined Reality. I thought it was really gorgeous with the cover and the colors. It's issue 1, or book 1. It's like a graphic novel in 4 parts. Book 1, it's a path divide, and I thought that was just a beautiful cover. I kept looking at it from across the way. But the art inside is this really kind of heavy, I don't want to say like woodcut, but it reminds me of old woodcuts, and it's really heavy, black and white, very, very stark. And I thought the artwork was gorgeous. And then the second book is Siegfrieder Hostium, and the 3rd one I have on disc, and that is called Bonds Less Broken, and then they will have the 4th issue done in the spring, and they'll email everybody when it comes out. So that was really cool. I got to meet Scott Munson. He does the writing, and then today when I was back helping pack up our table and take everything back to the store, the artist came over and he's like, oh my god, I'm so glad you like it, and I hope you really like the comic. So it looks really interesting, and I really, I hope it works out really well. So that was a fun one. I was like, oh, I found something that nobody else is reading yet. Yay. And then, so like I said, Mike Norton is there. He did I went to that panel he did with Phil and John, and then he did the cover. So I also thought, because he sold prints, he works exclusively as a digital artist. He doesn't do a lot of hand drawing anymore. So he had these gorgeous prints, and I bought 2 of Battle Pug. So this is Earth's Snortiest Heroes, and it's the Battle Pugs all done up as the Avengers, and I thought this was probably the cutest thing ever. Mike has an Eisner Award for the Battle Pug webcomic. It's basically, it starts out this really weird, crazy tale about this warrior. It's very kind of Conan-like, and they yeah, blah, blah. And this gigantic pug, like, they kind of bond, and then they go on an adventure together. Was a little battle pug dressed as Wonder Woman, who has now gotten tangled in her lasso. And it's called The Leash of Truth, and it just cracked me up, because this would be a dog. I mean, they would be all bent on saving the world, and then get tangled up in their leash, and then it was playtime. That was, Phil Hester's there. I know Phil a little bit. My friend Eric Gapster, who is also an artist, does a lot of inking for Phil. And Phil has a lot of just pages that, you know, they're, you know, kind of like drawn, and they've been inked up, but for some reason, you know, either they changed it, or this isn't a copy or something. So it didn't go through, and he had a whole stack of them, and they were 20 bucks a piece. The sun is you know, kind of going in and out of the clouds. But this is from the story he did for Immortals, which came out. There was the stories to kind of go with the Immortals movie that came out a few years ago. And so this was his section. This is Theseus. And so I picked it out, and, you know, I handed it to Phil, and he signed it in front of me, and he said, oh, this has one of my favorite storytelling, you know, devices. And he had a younger artist sitting there with him, and the younger artist said, oh, well, what do you mean? And Phil's like, well, watch. He jumps over the cliff, and then you just follow the smoke down and around, and it guides the eye through the panel, because there's no, there's really no, you know, there's no dialogue in this panel. It's all wordless. So it has to move through, and I thought the art style was gorgeous. He had some stuff that he had done for, you know, other major, like, Phil is a DC artist. He and Eric are currently working on the Flash Year Zero, the tie-in for the TV show. And then they also did some Batman, you know, but I just thought the art on this was absolutely gorgeous, and, you know, $20 to own a piece of Phil Hester art, it's not a bad deal. I couldn't pass it up. That was my con experience. It was really, really fun. I don't know if I'll go to a whole lot of cons. I have kind of a crowd thing. So there was not a ton of people there, a whole lot, really. So it was really kind of nice. But I mean, definitely, I hope, you know, Noel had enough positive experiences with it that they've already got their weekend picked for next year. It's September 11th, and I hope, you know, Noel got enough feedback that, you know, fixed some things that didn't work, some things that did work, and it was great, and I had a great time, and so I hope to do it again. So that was it. Talk to you later. Bye. And I really might die, because the sun is coming out. That's kind of horrible.